If you've been riding a bike for a certain amount of years, how many of you have been riding a bike, say, maybe 2 or 3 times a week for the last 2 years? Okay, so it's like half of you, maybe just under half. Because interestingly, if you like this thing about endurance, if you can build it up, so you don't necessarily have to keep doing it. So for someone like me, I don't have to worry about endurance because endurance has been there since I've been riding, since I've been racing. It'll always be there unless I take a very, very long time period off the bike. So for you guys, like supplementing, like it only kind of needs to be like 1 ride a week that needs to be over 2 or 3 hours long. The rest of the time you can spend kind of working on this kind of harder effort, say anything between 1 to 10 minutes. Nothing crazy. Like you can go out for 10 minutes, doesn't really take a lot of concentration. When you start going over 10 minutes, you can obviously start like feeling a pinch. But breaking it down, and it might be going into some detail, but if you bear with me, you can kind of almost work it out in your head when you're out riding, even without a power meter or a heart rate monitor. But training stress score, TSS, there's a big formula calculation, basically says that the amount of work you do in an hour on the bike. So say, like I said earlier, like if you went as hard as you could for an hour, you'd get 100 TSS. Excuse me. If you went, if you were doing, generally speaking, I'm just going to use myself as an example. If you did an endurance ride, you generally look to average, say, 40 to 50 TSS an hour. If you're doing threshold, which is zone 3, I'll explain the zones in a minute, but zone 3 is kind of like this middle ground area. There's usually about there's 6 zones, but 6 is almost like your sprint zone, so we don't really talk about that. So zone 5, so zone 3, like your middle ground, you're looking at around 60 or 70 TSS an hour, and then anything above that, like 80 TSS an hour, you're looking at sweet spot. You're looking at 90 TSS an hour. Obviously now you're getting onto the realms of like doing an hour time trial, 25 mile time trial, you're looking at 100 TSS because you're riding at your threshold for an hour. So with that said, structured rides, again, massively dependent on your ability, but we're generally looking at 100 TSS for that an hour and a half, which means you're working at an intensity factor of 0.75, which generally means 75% of your threshold for an hour. So again, it's all relative to what your fitness level is. So for example, I'd probably be working at around 0.5, which is like a recovery ride for me, but generally speaking, on average, we'd be looking at 100 TSS an hour, which is 0.75. Now, 0.75 would be upper end of our endurance, but also with the efforts that we do, this is the important bit, the specific efforts we do, we're actually touching 0.8, which is sweet spot, and going over to 1.2, which is 120% of your threshold, which is then working your VO2 max system, which is zone 5, which is actually pushing yourself then to like, we're looking at around the 5 to 8 minute mark. So we've done a few efforts where we've done, just trying to think of anything we've done.
Sprinting uphill feels good.
Yeah, but is it 3 minutes long?
Yeah, sorry.
Which ones have we done that have been like 3 minutes, 5 minutes?
Done the one through Bynea on a Saturday morning.
Bynea.
We went through Bynea.
And then
I pressed it.
That won't be hard enough.
Blue Anchor.
Blue Anchor, yeah. So we went really hard the first. So that first minute, there we are. So break that down. The first minute of Blue Anchor, for those of you who don't know, steep climb. We would have been working like probably well over that 1.2. So we'd probably be well like 1.330% of our threshold. Then we were resting for like 30-40 seconds or a minute, whatever it was, and then we were going up for like 3 minutes, and then we were working at like 1.1, 1.2. So we were kind of going really hard, backing off, and then going not as hard, because obviously the duration is longer for the next effort, because that's the important thing to remember. The longer the effort, the less intensity you can maintain. Simple as that, really. So any questions on that? I mean, the training for longer events part of it, this is where kind of the TSS comes in, because those of you that do say 25-mile time trials, so your event is like an hour, you're better off being able to do 3 by 20-minute blocks over your threshold to train for that hour effort, as opposed to just getting very good at riding an hour at your threshold. So instead of getting very good at riding 1 hour at an intensity factor of 1.0, you want to be very good at riding 20 minutes at 1.1, recovering for 10 minutes, riding another 20 minutes at 1.1, recovering for 10 minutes, and repeating it again. So that's obviously a 1 hour block, 20 minutes, but you're having a little bit of break in between. Interestingly, a lot of the best Ironman athletes in the world at the minute, the guys winning Kona, the world champs, they break their event down into basically 3 half-an-hour chunks. So instead of, even though they know that they're going to be completing that that bike section in like 4 and a bit hours, instead of just going out and riding 4 or 5 hour rides, their sessions are like less than 2 hours long. And what they're doing is just riding half an hour at something that's obviously well above what they'd be able to sustain in Kona, but then having a very short recovery period and doing it again, another half an hour block, another short recovery, another half an hour block.